So, good evening, guys. Welcome to the second episode of this India Edu Talk series. The Indian education system is witnessing a radical shift and triggered by sweeping reforms, innovative technology, changing lifestyles, and I'll also add there is a political intent to this change. I'm Kaushik Chatterjee, founder and CEO of Career Clinic, and I'm on a mission to help children get into most enjoyable careers. And today we also have along with me Mr. Abir Mazumdar, founder Learning Hall. Abir believes that modern learning can tech helps students learn better, faster, and more efficiently with the right blend of people, system, and technology. In this series, we are going to hear uh, from Abir and myself, representing from industry and academia perspective, talk about the radical shifts that's defining the big bets for education in India through the National Education Policy 2020. So, Abir, welcome to the talk series. So, Abir, the first question is to you before you start firing questions onto me. So much is being talked about the National Education Policy 2020. So just give us a very simple overview for our guests and audiences to understand about it.
Right. Thank you, Kaushik, for that good introduction. And as Kaushik has already said, India EduTalk series is our second talk on the national education policy, where we are looking at education in totality in India and how things are changing and what are the inputs required and how things can improve. We did our first program about 2 months back, and since then the learning hall has taken up a lot of other opportunities during that 2 month period. This discussion has actually opened up windows of conversation with various academicians, educationists, teachers, parents, and students. And we are happy to inform that we have started from the learning hall various initiatives wherein we can talk directly to parents and students. That gives us a larger understanding of what the pain points are and how education is going to evolve, keeping them in mind. Let us also not forget that education is for students. And of course, if there are students, there are also parents. And so there we are trying to be a bridge between the policy as well as also between the parents. So in the last 2 months, we have opened up weekly surveys with the students, with the parents. We are talking, having conversations with them. And that is also giving us a very clear idea about various pain points that parents are facing. We are also to talk about this is also a time when the headlines are coming up on the edtech sector, when things are the edtech has suddenly become a bit more unstable and people are questioning the model of edtech as they are teaching out there. But at the same time, there is also a requirement which we are understanding from the parents, that whether online is more suitable to them or offline is more suitable to them. And we will discuss all of these in today and future discussions also. So with that backdrop, let me start a bit about the national education policy. As we have already touched upon in the previous conversation, which was about 2 months back, national education policy has been a great radical shift that has been implemented by the government of India. After 34 years, a new education policy has come into being, which is trying to change the face of education in India in the backdrop of a global, economy, knowledge superpower. And post-COVID, it has become very important for us to rely on our own education and stand up our own feet to make a higher superpower into India, of India. The national education policy, as we all know, has been, prepared under the draftsmanship of Dr. Kasturi Rangan, and it has taken 4 years for preparation, because that they talk to educational panelists, inputs from across the world, and that's how the discussion, the policy has come out in place. But the real movement of the policy is happening in 2022, because post-COVID, this is the first year that we are actually seeing movement in the ground. The schools have opened, there are offline classes happening, and discussions have happened. So we are seeing a series of meetings on the 2020, education policy in 2022, where even the Prime Minister is present. Very recently, there has been a conference in Jammu, in the IIM Jammu, where the President of India, Mr. Ramnath Kovind, went there, and how he talked about the importance of how national education policy has been made to be a great, the building block or the foundation block of India being a superpower in the next decade. Similarly, the Prime Minister has inaugurated a 3-day seminar in Varanasi a few days back, wherein major educationists have come over to discuss the various aspects of national education policy and how national education policy can define education and India's knowledge superpower in the next decade. Let us also understand the country is on a 25-year journey, which is called the Amrut Mahotsav, where the country is taking a leap forward. And this is actually a very good foundation for the 25-year roadmap of the government. The education policy completely kind of looks at education and differently, has broken it down into even the basic level of 10+2 has been broken up into various layers or gradations. And students are being allowed to experiment and try out different areas and in the various areas, even from a very young age, which will enable them to take up the right profession in the going forward. As we all understand, India is gradually transitioning to a talent-driven economy, where every individual is bringing out his best talent. And as a country, we have to build a platform or a system where we will be able to, accommodate that talent of that person, and that starts at the schooling years. So this education policy is first of all like discovering the talent of the child at a very young age, from the age of 5 or 6 or whatever, and then gradually take him to the direction of his choice. So there are multiple tenets of this education policy. There are various aspects which I'm sure we will discuss in the conversations, and Kaushik will also go through in the various elements of it. But another important thing that we want to say is not only to bring out the talent, but also to have the curiosity and the creativity of the child, because the children have a lot of questions. And so far, education has been so worried about a syllabus driven process that they have forgotten to understand that children's inquisitiveness or questioning ability also has to be addressed. So today, when we are implementing the national education policy, we are also addressing the fact that the children's questions have to be answered. Their creativity also has to be tapped. With questions come ideas. And these ideas of children, if we tap at the right time, at the right moment, it will do a wonder to the talent of the child. Okay, so there's a great shift in the way we are looking at education today. With that, these being the building blocks, so this is also a time we are very fortunate that national education policy is being discussed now, and Learning Hall is, has the opportunity to talk about it. So here we are thinking afresh on the education of a child, and we are seeing how creativity and reasoning ability of children can be addressed, and how they can move vocationally and through various they can pick and choices. There are no boxes. This is the time when we are breaking the traditional boxes of education and allowing children to experiment. So there's a certain amount of syllabus that we are giving to them, but we are also building a system where we are going to nurture or capture their creativity and their originality. And we see it is a responsibility of the adult generation to not only capture them, but also to take it to a proper direction, because they might do wonders tomorrow. So that being the backdrop and the power of national education policy to influence the thinking of the future generation. My next question to Mr. Kaushik is, Kaushik, if you can run us through the basic tenets or basic pillars of the education policy, especially in terms of the new structure or vis-a-vis the old. Old was the 10+2, and the new structure is the 5+3+3+4. If you can just run us through the basic tenets of that. Over to you, Kaushik.
Thanks, Abir. So to whatever extent, and I understand about this NEP 2020, I think it is the promise to really restructure and disrupt our education ecosystem. from pre-primary to higher education, and also reconfigure it, as you said, systems with skills and research on the foundations of experiential learning and creativity. So to answer your question, it's a short answer. The four tenets that I see is access. I mean, how do we ensure that education in the transformed avatar reaches to the remotest girl child in the country, the quality, and this is all driving about excellence in terms of all the cognitive and the other sensory ways of learning, uh, using the teacher as a medium, using technology as a means, the equity part of it, and obviously, this is from even from our constitutional directives, education for all, the sustainability goals. How is that everybody has an equal right and an equal fulfillment for meeting educations and affordability? We all know India has a diversity in terms of not just culture, creed, religion, but also in terms of income groups. So access, quality, equity, and affordability. Now, coming specific to the structure that you mentioned, the 4-3-3-5. So, the what I see is the foundational piece of the 5 years, right? The first 3 years being the age group of 3 to 6, where we are saying that Anganwadi, preschool, Wal Vatika sort of a thing, right? And this is where I guess a larger funnel will be getting in, that access and the equity piece will be coming in. We're drawing more people out there, starting the age group of 3 to 6, and then they get into the so-called class 1 and 2, and that's the age group 6 and 8. So this 3 years of the preschool, the kindergarten and the Montessori, or the Anganwadi as we may call it, plus the class 1 and 2 together make the foundational 5 years, and then gets into the classes 3 to 5, and that's say age group 8 to 11. This is the preparatory part of it, and like in class 3, the basic demands of literacy and numeracy learning. And I think there's a charter that by 2027, the government is looking that every child in this country has to be literate and numerate, and every child in terms of at least passing the class 3rd standard. Now that's I think there's a mission called Nipun that is come, NIPUN, which is talking about the foundational literacy in terms of language and numeracy. That itself will be a great achievement, where you develop the interest of a preparatory child into communicating and understanding and listening the basic language. And the good part of it is it's all being taught in their own space, safe space of their mother tongue. So that's I think is a wonderful move, and sort of treating their mother tongue as good as the national language. So they should get the feeling that what they're talking is pretty much India. So with that pride, learning in this mother tongue, and so that's getting the language literacy as well as the number literacy is going to really interest a lot of people to continue upwards, because we have seen a gradual decline of people dropping out at every stage of this funnel. So that's the preparatory stage of ages 8 to 11 and class 3 to 5, and then it moves into the middle school, the classes 6 to 8, ages 11 and 14, and from there classes 9 to 12. So that comprises the secondary part of it. And once that happens, then let's look at the middle part of it, and this is where I guess more of the creativity, more of the interdisciplinary. Let me figure out what I like the most. That experiential learning thing will work. I also hear there is a vocational intent. Everybody has to pick up a vocational paper of understanding what I like: farming, orcharding, or sort of building some small machines and all that part of it. And this hands-on piece then gives that competencies of really being grounded, of interacting with people, of being creative and expressive, and all the right tenets of critical thinking, problem solving, communication, interpersonal pieces. That gets stitched together maybe in the middle school, and then you get into the knowledge piece of classes 9 to 12, where with all this piece, when we are more confident, you are numerate, you are communicative, you have experimented with things that you love to do, Then you get into the highest echelon of school knowledge, which is in the secondary piece, classes 9 to 12. And this is what can shape up in terms of understanding that what's that whole piece of stream selection. And the good part is today, I think the borderline of the science, the humanities, and the commerce, those streams, they're also just getting shattering down. So, I mean, it's not about physics, chemistry, maths. I can pick up physics, chemistry, possibly political science also. I can pick up maybe biology and economics and social sciences also. I think those days are not very far off. And once that happens, then I think the true liberalized, cross disciplinary, interdisciplinary mix happens, and we get a very holistic, education environment for the child to learn. So all of this, that the experts are saying will definitely be picking up the gross enrollment ratio. I think the target they're talking about is that by 2050, it will move from, what are the current level of 27%? Sorry, it's by 2035, we will be moving from 27% of the gross enrollment ratio completing the secondary school. From 27%, it has to be moving to 50%. And if that happens, that means, close to twice the number of the demography, and we have a young demography. So twice the more number of students actually receive and move up to the level of the 12th education, the secondary education. And I think that's a big shift in terms of really liberating a society and a nation by the power of the reforms will be like, if over the next 25 years. And I think you talked about, this Amrit Kal, the Azadi Ka Mahotsav. We are turning 75. So in the next 25 years, and we are standing on a demographic dividend, sort of 50% of our folks are less than 30 years of age. So when this happens, I think we truly unleash the power and make this democratic advantage into what they call as a dividend, and we flourish as a nation that way. So it is not just about putting a 5-3-3-4 academic framework. It has sweeping imperatives in really building a foundation, in really building, taking it up into an interest in the basic learnings of language through which we communicate, and the ability to count and interpret numbers, right? That itself is humongous. And from there, your creative expressions, your ability to experiment with different things, your ability to be working in groups, all that, and then getting to the knowledge pieces of really figuring it out, which are the courses when mixed and matched will be able to do. So I guess the career option selection, typically was more driven from a stream selection that, if I choose a career, let's say in being a space scientist, so I should be taking this subjects and science as a stream and this as a subject. So I think that will get a lot more liberalized. I may then be picking up a subject called definitely physics. I may also pick up an element of designing, because if it's space research, maybe innovation is key. I may also be able to pick up an element of maybe illustration, because that helps me to really visualize what a future looking spacecraft will be looking for. In all this, when a system permits, it is going to truly unleash what we may call holistic learning and do justice to the tenets of access, quality, equity, and affordability. So that's a little of my perspective on what the basic tenets and their implications will be. So Abir, the question to you is, how do you see this education system evolving under the new regime? 2020, I know the pandemic had stalled the implementations a little ahead, but then we still are rolling on at good speed. So where do you see some tractions on the ground?
Right. Kaushik, thank you for such an elaborate explanation of the new structure. But I just want to add one more point to the discussion that you've just concluded, which is the 5+3+3+4 model replaces the 10+2. Now, I'm sure there have been psychologists that have worked into that model to break it down. The age-old method, which was practiced, I would say, worldwide, to break it down into a very new methodology. And I'm not sure whether we practice it elsewhere in the world. Perhaps this is the first time we are seeing such a modular structure of the academic section. And what we really, while we know psychologists are there, but what we expect this, since this is broken up into 4 modules, we can expect that each module has its own deliverable. So the first lot or the first bunch of 5 years, at the end of the 5 years, there has to be certain deliverables which every school has to accommodate, and as a country we have to achieve. Similarly, the next level of the 3 years will have to achieve and accommodate. So basically, we are talking of now 4 levels, step by step, breaking it up into maybe smaller steps rather than one big step of 10 years and then 2 years. Maybe we have broken it up into smaller steps and seeing the impact that these smaller steps are taken to reach the actual goal, which is up to 12. So ultimately, we are again covering up to 12 out here. But here, by taking 4 steps instead of 2, and that might make a lot of difference in the learning ability and the learning outcome of the student. So that's one take that I had to have out there. I think other than that, what is coming out is that, as we all said, that this is a time when we are thinking afresh. Education is going through a complete change, and to what extent we are accepting the old and then taking up the new. Is it a completely new setup, or are we taking the best out of the old and then building up the new? I'm sure we have taken up certain elements of the old and then strengthened it also. For example, what we are talking of the language part of it, because you know the language is a basic foundation of a child, which you can only give in the initial years. And it's a great step or an initiative to put our own national language or regional languages into the forefront for the first few years, and not English or any other subject. Let us not be disturbed, because these will anyway take up over a period of time. So maybe that's a very good step to understand our own culture, our own language, our own elements, and then slowly build upon the other languages as we take forward. We know that English is not our national language. Even Hindi is not our national language. So we have to respect the language that we offer, and that offer every region has. So South has its own language, East has its own language, North has its own language, and Hindi is not a national language so far. So let us respect the languages and see how it can help over there. At the same time, we also have to remember that education is not a national endeavor, but it is a collective endeavor between the nation and the state, between the national government and the state government. So they have to work in, cooperation to make these, because each state has its own academic curriculum, which might be slightly different from the other state. Over time, if we are talking of 35, 34 years, we run about one education policy, I'm sure the curriculum of the Western India will not match with the curriculum of Eastern India. So maybe this is, so it's important for everybody to come together, talk it out, and the curriculum has to be discussed. So maybe to some extent it is similar to a GST council in the corporate world, where the state and the nation come together. But unlike GST, which meets every month, maybe this could be a quarterly discussion between the center and the state, wherein they can discuss various elements and integrate the best policy. In fact, there has been a corrigendum that has come up from the government in the last 2 years, wherein about the 3-language formula, about your regional language, your Hindi language, or your mother tongue, or English. People suddenly asking questions, and then the clarification has come that the national education policy, the guiding document, is not something that you have to follow or in toto. So the states have the freedom to take out the best of it and use it to the benefit. Ultimately, it is for the benefit of the children of the state, and there will be certain state inputs also over and above the national input and national education policy. So let us also appreciate that we run on a state model and not on a national model yet. Maybe tomorrow, when if at all it becomes a national model, we can look at it later. But as of now, we are on a state model, and there's a good correlation between the two. So now, talking of the old and the new element, one of the major new elements is, while we are talking of looking at things that fresh, that students will get the best elements of it, let us also not forget that education is a not-for-profit entity or a regulated entity, or an education for all is a social mission and not a business mission. So let us also remember education cannot be freely priced. Okay, so the nation or the state puts education at a priority, and that for to make it available to everybody, the pricing, there are free education being given to the lower sections of the society, and to a large extent that will also continue as and when, because our target is to get people on education and not on the revenue part of it. So obviously there will be, we will continue on the agenda of free education to the system. But that also puts us back into the question that how are we going to get the best teachers in the new education policy? While you want the best education to go to the students, how will you get the best talent of the country join education as a teacher? Until and unless you look at their salary level or their financial part of it, the best teachers have so far, education, the best guys would definitely go to the corporate, or they would go abroad and they would look at better options, but will not join education as a profession. Now, when we are talking education, when we are looking at giving, recognition to teachers, professors, scientists, etc., then how do we get the best teachers on board? So there is a, catch-22 situation. On one end of it, you cannot price, you cannot raise the fees of the students. You have to get more and more. But on the other hand, at a lower fees or a lower salary, the best teachers will not come. So there is a kind of a dichotomy in the whole process, and this is a good time where we can look at it, and how to bring the best talent into education, and not only to attract but also give them a career, to how they grow, how they do their PhD, what are the research facilities we give it to them, are they able to write books, add knowledge to the system. So there's so plethora of initiative, because they are dedicated. If students are dedicating their academic portion, the teachers are also educating the working life. So for that working, there is a time for complete relook into the system. Whereas we are seeing a lot of edtech companies coming up. But let us remember that education has to be given in the schools and not by EdTech. So EdTech at best can be secondary support to the schools, and schools have to be strengthened. So if you have to strengthen schools, the best paid teacher should join the school and not the EdTech company. In today, they are joining the EdTech companies. They are not joining the schools. How will you make them join the schools? Until and unless there's a gap, will the government support the funding deficit? Will the corporate support the funding deficit? Or do we see something different, which is still there in my mind? You can see something like a teachers organization where teachers join, and teachers can be sublet to schools for teaching. So basically, just like you have IT companies supporting companies on the IT backbone, similarly there could be teacher companies, the teacher institute that might support schools with their best of teachers, and as and when required. And schools can enter into an agreement with these kind of school teacher organizations, and that might do a bit, in which case the teachers will get a corporate salary, but they might teach to the schools, and that schools will also get the best teachers without having to hire them in a totality. They might take a lesser number of teachers, they can hire a certain amount, but the deficit, or they can also use this as a backup or a shortfall where the teacher organization can support. These are some of the thoughts, but this is also a great time. So we also, as we go forward, we also see that there will be a correction where the schools get more prominence than edtech companies. Okay, the schools get, and the schools are the epitome, they are the front face to the students. Tomorrow we might even get a chain of schools, okay, which something like your Delhi Public School, which has so many franchisees, and the Z Play schools, which are working on a national chain school, and more the better, because that might also increase the number of the network and give better teaching talent. At the same time, there is also the option of giving online option, which is not, you may not have to, you may have a hub and spoke model, which you have a physical school, X number of physical schools, and Y number of digital backbone, which you can give it to the as a secondary support to others. By this you can increase a larger number of students. But as we see, education will be a blended model, which is a mix of physical teaching and digital teaching, and schools will change their face in the days to come. So these are some of the thoughts in today and tomorrow that we oversee coming, and I'm sure there will be more trends coming. Teachers will definitely come out of the routine role, and the routine role will be automated through videos or whatever, and the teachers will actually be on the value added side, and they will add greater value. Schools will also have to differentiate. Each school has to differentiate, and that differentiation has to come not only to go beyond the prescribed syllabus. Today, while we are teaching a lot of students, we are seeing that majority of the schools are following the syllabus. Majority of the schools are following the syllabus, whereas how will you differentiate the school if you don't create your own material beyond the regular thing? So there is an opportunity that each school might have to create a differential output, either in a video content or a written sub booklet or whatever, so that this school is better than that school, and tomorrow students will join the school. Because if you just follow the skeleton of the policy document or the syllabus, you're not creating differentiating schools. So once you have to create differentiating students, you will also have to create differentiating teachers. We will also have to create differentiating schools. At the same time, teachers also have to go through periodic tests to test their capability. I think today we still don't have a mechanism where teachers are made to go through correction factors, maybe a national test or whatever, with a periodicity, maybe every 3 years or every 5 years, where they also, refresh themselves and come back. Because, once you get a qualification in India, that qualification stays for life. And these qualifications are, with time, it gets updated. So every 5 years, there is a possibility of updating or refreshing the capability of the teacher. That's a great change for the teacher. But for that, you also have to bring in talented teachers, better teachers who will not join this because they are not getting jobs, but they will join it as a kind of passion. So there's a whole ecosystem there which needs to be changed, and perhaps you can do it along with this new education policy. So my next question to Kaushik is, Kaushik, how will you how is the NEP 2020 mixing up the old and the new, and what new things is it bringing to the table?
Thanks, Avir, and I can really appreciate the palpable enthusiasm, especially when you touched upon this this agenda of teachers. And maybe I'll just add to this, or rather, I will validate what you said, that teachers and faculty are and should be at the heart of the entire learning process, right? It's their recruitment. And when I say this is not just the urban schools, not just the non-aided schools, but a lot of aided and free schools, keeping that Bharat in mind. I think it's all about the recruitment. Today we are not able to attract the right talent. So it starts from the recruitment, the continuous professional development. Why 5 years? When we work for an enterprise, we are continuously developing, and that's required for us to be staying in the system. So recruitment, continuous professional development, positive working environments. And I think a lot is being done with respect to correcting the environment of our schools. I hear in Delhi that there is great work happening on the school side in terms of the working environment and the service condition of theirs, right? Service conditions in terms of their pay, their recognitions, their increments, and building their accountability part also. And obviously, if we need to restore and at least take some steps to implement the essence of it, we need to restore the high respect and status of the profession to inspire and motivate our teachers. Without this, I'm completely with you. And I hear, government is focusing on providing opportunities for self-improvement, continuous professional development. I heard that there's some budget that has been given for digital teachers, which is like some peddly allocation right now of 6 crores in terms of making the teachers sort of being a little more proficient on the digital usage part of it, right? And so that's the teacher part of it. And you also touched upon the medium. Yeah, EdTech definitely has its place. And I'm sure, I think a lot of startups will be there in the EdTech space, focusing on the government schools. As of now, what has happened is mostly how to replace a I mean, today when the future business, the future, what are the schools that are coming and talked about by the EdTech guys who suddenly have gone from the virtual into focusing on the hybrid space. Uh, it's an extension of the rich and the elite schools or the city schools. Most of the startups on the EdTech are working on that as an ideal client. But there's a lot to be done on the non-aided and the free schools. And I wish there are more startup and disruptive innovatives that are coming up, with all this AI, the robotics, and the automation pieces. A balance between humans, which is the teachers, the systems, the processes, which is the technology, and algorithms. Uh, Today, I think that can work wonders. So yeah, going back to your key question of old wine in the new bottle, my take would be like, yeah, it's not just a repackaging, and I sincerely hope that's not the case. But it is like, maybe the old wine there's an opportunity for it to be really distilled, refreshed, and rejuvenated, and obviously put it into a packaging which is more amenable and relevant to, the contemporary learners and educators and the society and the parents. Uh, Things like, recognizing, identifying, fostering unique capabilities of each student. You touched upon this. Now that really hasn't happened earlier, right? By sensitizing teachers as well as parents to promote, the holistic development. We really acknowledge that every child is different. We have only seen it in movies, but on real ground, and I think that that essence and that feeling has never been there, both in academic and non-academic spheres. So that's one. Uh, you talked about the foundational literacy and numeracy, right? By all students by grade 3. I think that's a very powerful mandate, very powerful guideline to packaging this new bottle, right? That the bottle doesn't hold good if a child at grade 3 doesn't achieve foundational literacy and numeracy. Then I spoke about this flexibility part of it. We haven't talked about it earlier louder enough, that learners have the ability to choose their learning pathways, programs, and thereby choose their own paths in life with respect to talents and interests. And that's where, as a career guide, I have sincere interest and optimism that, this is going to really take students to do what they love to do, right? So flexibility is being acknowledged. No hard separations between this art, science, curricular, extracurricular, vocational, academic. So there's no hierarchy, there's no silos, and I think as that gets blurred, it becomes like, we only have gone and created and said this is humanities, and if you pick up humanity, you are not the brightest of the student. That's how the society looks at. And if you get a tag on the science, then I think, it's like the first achievement of a parent key. My child has gone into taken up a science. So those things, I think a lot of this social biases which are killing this piece. That's a fresh packaging, a fresh thought. Multidisciplinary, holistic education. Yeah, the emphasis of what you call that rote-based learning. Giving way to conceptual learning by doing, creativity, critical thinking. These are being told, and I'm sure a bit of technology, a bit of the way we teach, a bit of the pedagogy, all of this will definitely be supporting these pieces. Things like ethics, human ethics, constitutional values, and a lot of it is required in the current society, right? Things like respect for public property. We see this happening all across, right? This pluralism, equality, responsibility, cleanliness. We may have enough of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, but this has to be learned by the child at school, and that's the best place to learn. You touched upon multilingualism. I think that's being told today, and it's not about power of three. It's not power of many, right? So we are acknowledging that you go ahead and learn. Please learn in the language that you're comfortable. And yes, if states in a federal structure, that's a call that's the agenda that the state should be driving. And I'm sure, with too much of politicizing this entire piece, this may just get into a mess. Some part of India will learn some way, and the other will be completely, distance from that perspective. So that is something we wish that is taken care by pretty much that nice example you gave, the GST way. Yes, there will be tough times, but there is a brighter future with that belief, want us to get into. Old wine, new bottle, extensive use of technology. I'm sure I think I touched upon, and that's why certain part of inclusion or equity can happen. A lot of these Divyang students, increasing access for them. We have seen how these students grow up and really contribute to the society, right? In all literature, science, arts, sports, Paralympics. I think India is doing a great piece, right? This formative assessment going into rather, I will say, what you call the summative assessment. Well, class 6, this is my scorecard. Class 8, this is my scorecard, which is like summing up all that. Or class 10, this is like summing up that, getting into modular formative assessments. I think that's what's been proposed. So that will eradicate a lot of this coaching culture. I'm not commenting anything against on this, but I think at times it is overwhelming and it is a little more overdone, is what my feeling is. And I know it's a huge industry. There'll be enough resistance to break this. But it is important because the amount of money and the time that gets badly invested without really having a sense of what is a career that I should be doing, all of us just take a herd flock attitude and get into an institute, hoping that we all will get into AIIMS and the IITs, which doesn't happen, right? So I think I will say it is not the old wine being wrapped into a new bottle, but it's really being distilled, refreshed, rejuvenated, and then wrapped in a new bottle, which is amenable and suitable for connecting and resonating with the people of this age. So that's my thought out here, Abir, on this. Now with all this happening, and I think the conversation is becoming very, very interesting. So Abir, from a perspective of Learning Hall, how do you see this, really taking shape? What would you be carrying as founder of Learning Hall, and what changes would you be doing into your approach?
Right. That becomes the automatic, flow of discussion from the national level to the, our own role as to what we do. Because first of all, we talk about what the nation is doing, but then what is our key takeaway? What is our role? What do we do to take the situation forward? So in one aspect, I think the first thing that I want to see is that there is a certain amount of goal congruence between the national education policy or the government's aim of creating education for all, as well as the the philosophy of the Learning Hall, which is we want everybody to learn well, we want everybody to learn better, and whether we can be a guiding force to them. So essentially we are also working towards an ecosystem wherein we can create an environment where conversations happen, discussions happen, and whether this would be able to impact or bring some of these inputs or suggestions are taken forward by the government, and we also take a lot of elements from there. So the one element that we take is definitely what we are going to pursue is the while we agree, while we accept the format of the government, but we also about the creativity and the questioning ability of the child, which we have said that we are very much for it. And we are also creating an organization where we give an outlet, or we build a system where students can ask questions and we are able to give answers. Today, I was very surprised, and I've discussed it in one of the platforms before, that if a student asks us why we don't make water as an alternative source, why H2O, which we have learned in school, why don't we do it in the lab and make it available to people? Is it because prohibitively costly, or nobody has done it today? Why we are still doing well in the textbooks are all books, and which is papers, which is trees. Why we have still not found an alternative of the paper that is used as a textbook. While digital is just another alternative solution, but have we found a solution to paper? So these are fundamental questions which can even rise in the minds of a student who's studying in class 5, 6, or 7. But as adults, we still don't have answers. So Learning Hall also has to create an environment or ecosystem where students are going to ask questions and we are going to give answers. They have to be creative, and we are going to channelize their creativity. So Learning Hall also imbibes a certain philosophy which says that we believe in a talent-driven economy, and we believe that talent will define what people. So the traditional method that we built on is we are kind of trying to shift that, and whether every student can build his course of action even today. I mean, right from the school days. I mean, by the time he passes school, people should be able to say he's good at this and he's good at that. At the same time, Learning Hall also has a focus on science, okay, which we have already discussed in the previous one. While we are talking of breaking up, the elements of it, but the Learning Hall is being built to have a focus on science because we believe science has a great future for a nation. Okay, so with that respect, we will definitely want students to be interested in science, more curious, ask questions, do small projects, do experimental labs, and bring something new to the table. And maybe tomorrow they do PhDs and do build the nation with science, because the science builds a nation. All other elements have been given a lot of importance, but have we given science the kind of importance that it deserves? Do we respect people who are following up BSc, MSc, and PhD? Tomorrow, today, if we look at people who are, studying the regular sciences, you know that it's a deadlock today. But if you look at it from the opportunity that the person has, he is the guy who can get the Nobel Prize, or he can get the best prize in the nation because he is doing the fundamental research way, and he is going that way. Do we have a system for that? Towards maths, we talk of maths all the time. We have all done maths all over. But what does a maths guy do? Maths honors guy do at the end of his finishing maths honors or PhD in maths? Does he what is the future that we have for him? Do we employ him in jobs? Even if we put him as a teacher, what is the kind of opportunity that you have? Can he bring something new to the table? Okay, just now, very recently, we have seen a movie that has come up in rockets. So India is good at rocket science also. So where are we? Are we encouraging our people to go into that zone? Or are we creating the environment for science? So it's a very important step that Learning Hall is taking to talk about science, the importance of science of building the nation, and whether the recognition can we give the spotlight to the discoverers of scientists. Can we name any scientist of India today? Do we know? Because they have all got lost somewhere. They have taken up other professions. Nobody has followed science, but yet those of us who have gone through engineering, we know the rigor of science and technology that has been put to it. But then we have to go to that extra mile to add value to the nation. So do we have a platform for that? So these are the lot of questions that are coming in. So again, it comes back to the if we can inspire the students, we also have to inspire teachers. So do we have a teacher ecosystem to support that kind of student elements of it? Do we have to bring higher class of teachers? Do they go abroad for training? Do we have a teacher exchange program? Or nowadays we have started a student exchange program of business schools. But do we have a teacher exchange program? Can teachers go abroad, learn something? Or can foreign teachers come to India, learn something? Can India be a giver and not a taker? So that is also a journey that we are taking, wherein we believe that India can also be a net giver and not a net taker. And for that, we have to do a lot of things which we are actually borrowing from others. So a lot of elements out there. So Learning Hall is working on all of that. We want to build our own content, which we said that every school has to have its own content. And if we have to answer the conflict, whether an edtech or a coaching center, does it get the more importance of the school? Definitely the school gets more important than the coaching center. There's no doubt for it. But there is a renewed role of a coaching center. It not only teaches, but it also collaborates with schools and supplements or complements what the school is doing. So even coaching centers or these kind of edtech company, they work together with the school, supplement or complement the school with various capabilities, and that makes the school system tougher. At the same time, they can also support students. There is no way we are saying that this is wrong, but in terms of more important is to strengthen the school ecosystem, the college ecosystem through various initiatives. So Learning Hall would also like to support or work with schools and give our services to complement the school. At the same time, Learning Hall will also like to teach students on the outside also. So both ways, Learning Hall has to play or wants to play a very strong role on the evolution of education in the country in the coming decade. So there are so many thoughts. We are fortunate that our discussions have started being noticed by academicians and educationists. So I'm sure we'll be able to bring some of them in our future discussions, wherein we will share thoughts with these academicians and educationists. And gradually the learning hall, the ecosystem of learning hall is going to expand over a period of time. So learning hall has a lot to offer in terms of thoughts, in terms of processes, in actual teaching. We believe that education not only has to follow a rigid curriculum, but also has to go beyond it. So every institute has to focus on their own inherent, going beyond the curriculum. Also, teachers have to be influenced to bring out more books on textbooks or outside books, or so that they can also be exported outside. Indian teachers have to get the importance which is long due to them, because they are in some of the countries, teachers are more respected than the president of India, president of the country, because until if he had not taught the student, he would not have been the president of the country. Where is that kind of a recognition or respect given to teachers in India? Do we give national prizes? Do we give that to teachers? Do we give that? Also, we are talking not only on behalf of teachers, but we are also talking on behalf of scientists or technologists who will do fundamental research for the country. Are we giving that kind of recognition or a prize to that student? So this calls for an entire ecosystem change, which of course has the national education policy as the foundation. And we can talk around that, give in a lot of thoughts, but that becomes the backbone. And with that backbone, we can, the learning hall can, add more thought process as we go forward. I think these are some elements that we have in mind about the learning hall today. And my next question is to Kaushik to, replicate the same question to you. How does Career Clinic play a role in taking the national education policy forward? What are the thoughts that are there in your mind?
Thanks much, Abir. And I really wish Learning Hall the best in terms of its journey, and some of the plans that you really talked about are absolutely essential. So at Career Clinic, we have a very simple value proposition. Can I help you choose a career by choice and not by chance? Now, there are two aspects of it: choosing a career, which is identifying, and then obviously executing or pursuing that pathway to achieve that career. So how to choose? I think our piece is get them young. So an NEP suggests to offer a wide exposure to the child, especially in the middle school. That classes 6 to 8, 11 to 14 years. I think that's the perfect bet. My experience has been the best point of intervention has been class 8. And because by then they have formed, the child has formed a bit of what they like, how they like, preferences, what interests them, what motivates them. So what we do is, they may not be able to articulate or express, and it's very difficult to sniff it, just like that, or get the feeling and then, say that, oh, you must pursue career A versus career B. So use a well-researched assessment that can check on this and map into career options in terms of enjoyment, in terms of happiness. I was just freshly coming from a talk with some of the parents today, and we said, when your child grows up, what would you like to have? Money, power, fame, happiness. 64% of the parents actually said the first option is happiness, and another 22% of them said it's the second option. So primarily, we all believe that parents feel, the teachers feel, the schools feel that the child, whatever I'm doing, should grow up and do something that will keep them happy. And success is a byproduct of that happiness. So how do I decipher which is the happy and preferred zone of the child, right? And so that's where we use, based on occupational psychology, we've used this instrument that can sniff preferences, motivators, interests, 175 of these traits, and also check on the reliability of the response, and then map career with enjoyment scores. And then we follow it up with a process of conversation, which is more of a validation and a collaboration with the child, collaboration with the parents, and together, and then create a shortlist. So the whole process, it's not about Career Clinic as an expert comes and says this is what you should be doing, but it evolves, and that's where I think in the national education policy, it's also talking about the experiential way of collaborating, of giving the child and the parent a role in terms of figuring out that liberalized journey and an enjoyable journey. So this is what do we can do best with to get a stakeholder consensus. I'm using this word stakeholder in a very powerful sense, where the child is an important stakeholder, and that acknowledgement today is not too much out there in our social fabric. But we really want to empower the child and make him or her a stakeholder, and that creates a safe and confident and reliable space to work out, with the guide and the pathway. So what we talk about teachers, and in our case it's the guides, they need to build trust. They need to be really building a safe and a reliable space, a space to talk about, and that's what the fundamental placeholder to have this conversation. So things like, in class 6 and 8, I'm sure there will be extracurricular and co-curricular focus that's coming in. Already there are different clubs in the school, right? So what do I take? If I know that, I can be a scientific photographer because my preferences add up and say, that's an enjoyable piece. I'm not very sure whether I will do this or not, but why not give it a piece of action so that I can understand, what it is like. And so maybe I instead of just getting generally getting into anything and everything, I get into a photography club. What stream should I be taking, right? What tests to prepare? There are maybe 40 different tests that we have identified at the national level, right? Whether you want to study medicine, engineering, law, design, fashion, technology, teaching, so on and so forth. Now, what are and then each of the university today also have, some of their specific tests. So all this makes it a little more overwhelming. So we help them to say that, okay, if this is the journey, this is the next milestone. So maybe you just prepare for this 3 and not the 40 that you need to be eyeing on. What skills to improve in this process? And especially as you said, international borders, there are some children that will go out to learn, some children should be more, and we see in the NEP that there's a focus on, in fact, getting back an internal set of students to us also. So which means in our schools, in our universities, there will be more cross-cultural presence over the next period of time, right? So how do we improve communications from that perspective? Maybe skills like, when I interact with children, public speaking, storytelling, these are certain things that are so very essential. So how do we, we actually then bring them and give an opportunity. How do I do more live projects, experiential learning? How do I do more internships and all, right? And we see that in this journey, parents are change agents, teachers are change agents. They need to be coached, their beliefs, their biases that need to be addressed. So, so then they can create a stress-free supporting environment for this journey, right? And emerging careers, I think it calls for another session out there, but, tectonic shifts happening, uh, scientific technological advances happening, climate change happening, growing emergence of epidemics, pandemics, uh, growing demand for humanities and art. Today art is being sold in billions. So, all of this makes a very interesting space, and I think NEP has come in the right forum, and that's where we feel as Career Clinic, we really can partner into this initiative and help unlock the true potential of a child into his or her enjoyable careers. And in fact, we measure enjoyment against 750 plus careers. So I'm excited to see Career Clinic and in fact learning also. We are together being in exciting times, Abir. So any parting comment from you before we sort of wish our audience a grand evening? Anything that you would like to be commenting on this?
Right, right. Yeah, Kaushik, I think we had discussed various topics on the national education policy, coming down to even our role in certain select areas of the policy and how we can impact education today and tomorrow. So that's a very important topic. But more important, I think we are in exciting times in education. We are completely reshuffling education today, wherein tomorrow's children are going to see a much better version of education, which is world class. And I'm sure by meaning world class, we would be net givers and not takers. So obviously people would come to us for our knowledge, and our education system is even now one of the best in the world, that we must acknowledge. We ourselves went through one of the best educational aspects of the country. And we hope that we as adults now, we are in a position to change it for the even better version of what we have gone through. And with the government policies backing it up and supporting us, I think it would be a great time for us, not only us, but for children, for parents. And we would like to continue our conversations with the academic ecosystem of the country, which means educationists, teachers, principals, teachers, students, parents, and so that we understand you better and we add more value. Each of us have a role to play. The learning hall has a role to play in imparting best coaching and tutoring facilities, and Career Clinic has its own role in helping select together. So together we are offering some value-added services which will help the student discover their own talent, and again we help you move to a talent-driven economy. So here also we have built a platform wherein we discover the talent of the child pretty early, and we channelize or advise them to take a move in that direction. So there are multiple directions today. As it is, the world is full of attractive career options, but we also believe that teaching also becomes a very attractive career option. Teaching, research, writing, these all become attractive career options, and we get more and more people inspired to contribute to building the academic backbone of the country. And we hope we can contribute to the national education policy and in making India a knowledge hub in the next decade. I think that's a mandate that the government is taking. India becomes a knowledge hub, and academics is a good area. I mean, it's basically the foundation of it being the knowledge hub, because then only we will, with the best education, people will be able to contribute the best, and hopefully we'll get a better India, far better India, which will overcome the difficulty that we faced in COVID. And we come out with shining colors in front of the world after COVID. So that's a challenge that we are facing today, because after COVID, every lot of us have gone back decades back, and we all want to come back. So maybe through academics, we'll be able to bring the a lot of the shine back to the country, and let's hope we inspire a generation of people to contribute to the nation. Okay, so from that, both the Learning Hall and the Career Clinic thanks all our viewers, and very soon we will be continuing with your discussions and episodes, and you'll be seeing more visitors in our discussions very soon. Thank you, everyone.
So just to add, I think to the audience, we'll also share a small survey immediately after the event, and so this will have an offer to interact with our experts individually for any of your academic prep and career guidance requirement for your child. So that's all for the day, and thanks Abir for supporting me in this episode of India EduTalk series. And so hope to see you again next month for episode 3 of the India EduTalk series. Till then, stay safe. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.